While other female racers may get more attention with magazine covers and TV commercials, Erin Crocker has moved up the racing ladder the only way she knows how, by working hard and winning often.
She showed no fear like nobody I'd seen before, and that's male or female.
As a woman driver, she faces big hurdles at each and every racetrack she attends.
Anyone can be ordinary.
This is the story of NASCAR driver Erin Crocker. This is NASCAR Driven to Win.
This is where you got to be careful as a rookie. I mean, how good is this kid? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have what it takes to get by? Do you have the knowledge? He is closing fast now. White flag, boy, last time. And here they come.
As a female racer, Erin Crocker has always been and always will be compared to male drivers. But this petite 25-year-old is committed to achieving her goal of winning on the male-dominated NASCAR circuit.
I don't believe that she's trying to do this because she's a woman. I think she wants to be known as a race car driver.
And right now, because she is a woman, the biggest magnifying glass on her. There's a lot of other rookies in this field, but, you know, they're not going to be paying attention as much because it's Erin Crocker. And I mean, if she just keeps her head up and keeps getting after it, she'll be fine.
I didn't know I was holding anyone up. You know, I was trying to get around the car in front of me. I'm certainly not going to take the blame for this one. I'm just really frustrated. You know I can do this. I didn't have a good debut. It's just unfortunate we go home with another junk race car.
I don't mind racing against a woman. You know, if they're good enough and have the experience to be in Busch or to be in Nextel Cup, to race sprint cars or four-wheelers. I mean, it don't bother me. I'll race with them anytime.
There's a lot of disadvantages of being a woman in the sport, but there's, I think, more advantages at this time to be a woman in the sport. If I have to work every day to prove myself, you go to a new series or a new track and, you know, people right away look at you like, oh, another girl, or what is she doing? But to me, that's part of the challenge. It's part of the fun. Like, oh, you just wait, I'll prove it to you. I can tell you exactly who I am. You know, that kind of lights a fire under me.
Erin Crocker.
Erin Crocker grew up in the small town of Wilbraham in the middle of Massachusetts. As the youngest of 5 children in a close-knit family, Erin looked up to her siblings and tried to keep pace from an early age.
I think I grew up pretty fast because I was exposed to, you know, all the things that they were doing. But it was really neat. You know, they were always nice to me.
The oldest was 11 when she was born, and they all just treated her. There wasn't competition with Erin. The older ones were, the older 3 are a year apart, so they all rooted for her. So she really had the best, you know, of the worlds of having siblings but not competing with them.
She loved to do anything the boys were doing, especially Seth.
Might have made her a little bit of a tomboy. Then she used to try on hockey equipment, and we'd play street hockey and matchbox cars and typical boy things.
Brother Seth, who's 5 years old, I mean, I followed everything he did. We always did stuff together. Like I said, out in the yard, we were playing street hockey, or we were out in the woods building a fort, or I was definitely the outdoorsy type. So I think that's where I developed such a tough skin to deal with all these guys on the racetrack.
I sorted pictures the other day, and I found a picture of Erin pushing a doll carriage, and I looked, I said, I don't remember her ever having a doll. I don't know where that picture came from.
She definitely has her very feminine side as well, but she loved to do anything the boys were doing.
Erin developed an early appreciation for auto racing thanks to her father's love of race cars. And she spent her adolescent years competing in quarter midgets, a race car similar to a go-kart.
Well, my dad was always into cars, and I think someone introduced him to quarter midget racing before I was even born, or maybe just when I was like 1 or 2 years old. So we had my older brothers racing, and our family weekends we'd go to the racetrack, and most families go camping or fishing, and we went to the racetrack.
But we were pretty much the typical family, go away on weekends, and until we started racing, we were the typical family.
Erin was at the track every weekend, and so it wasn't a question of if she was going to race, it was a question of when she was going to race.
I think I was 6 the first time they let me get behind the wheel.
As a youngster, Crocker continued to race and win in quarter midgets, becoming the Northeast Regional Champion from 1993 to 1996. During her high school years, Erin drove micro sprints, and then she finally made the move to the very powerful sprint cars. Aside from racing, Erin excelled as a high school athlete.
She was vice president of her class, honor society. She played soccer, and then she played tennis for 2 years. She did lacrosse her senior year, skied for all 4 years. I think Erin was always mature.
She was an athlete, which was expected in our family. It was expected that you played sports.
Despite having a large family, no matter what we wanted to do, my father would say, go for it. You know, work hard at whatever you do.
And my parents, they were really nice like that. Like whatever we wanted, they encouraged it. They didn't push us into anything.
She was very competitive, but always in a really good way. You know, I've had a lot of those competitive athletes that can be a challenge to coach, but, you know, Erin wasn't like that.
Whatever she got into, she wanted to be the best at. And I have no idea where you get that quality.
That quality, determination, has always driven Erin to be the very best. But would a family tragedy shift her focus?
Of course, it would be a Dodge, so I'd like a Viper. My very first car was a Ford Escort, and it was silver with a red door. Erin Crocker. I've never gotten a speeding ticket. I'm not much of a spiders, rats, rodents type of person, but this isn't really a phobia.
Erin Crocker is a young racer whose dream is NASCAR. Her racing career started as a family outing where her father introduced her to the world of racing and nurtured her driving talents. That was all about to change. Just as Erin's racing career was about to take off, her father, William Crocker, was diagnosed with cancer. It wasn't long before her shining light and racing mentor passed away and left Erin at a crossroads.
Dad was a very driving force in the racing. Erin became her own driving force on her own and did a lot of things on her own. I think that's what gave her a big advantage. I'm sure she carries his thoughts, you know, his push to racing with her. She was the youngest of the family. Some of us were married, some of us were in the process of getting married, most of us, or all of us, with the exception of Erin, were out of the house when he passed away.
That was probably the only time that I really saw her set back a notch or two. I remember going to the wake and everything, and this was a big shock because he was very important to her and the entire family. It was tough for her to get through that stretch, but I think it showed something about her character because she really didn't let everything go or everything slip or use this as an excuse. She had her momentary blip, and then she picked right up and continued to be the hard-nosed kid she is.
I think she pulled from inside and said, you know, this is how Dad would have done this, and she's got a lot of my dad in her. She's obviously a lot like both of my parents, but Dad was a very strong, resilient person.
When he passed away, I think it added a lot of dimension to Erin. She became very self-reliant. You know, I have to do things on my own, and I think she became a much stronger person.
You know, it's hard to say. He's been gone for 8 years now, basically. So 8 years ago, I was definitely a different person than I am today. But I think he'd be as proud as anything.
After the loss of her father, Erin bounced back and found a way to continue her pursuits of racing competitively. She found an advocate in veteran racer Mike Woodring.
So I always had the determination to do something big, and I always loved racing, but I just didn't know where my niche was, I guess. My father passed away, like I said, when I was 17, and at that point, he had owned all our race cars up until then, so there were a few years that I didn't race much, but I kept going around the track, and I'd race here and there.
The few races that she ran earlier that year, she didn't have the greatest results in the world, but I knew what she was driving and her limited experience, and she showed no fear like nobody I'd seen before, and that's male or female.
At the time, he was a 7-time champion of this series, but he was kind of beyond the age where he could go to, you know, try to make it, you know, to the NASCAR world. So I think he was kind of looking for a challenge in his own life. I knew I needed to get my face out there, and I knew I needed to be around it. And I didn't ever expect it to be an offer from him, but I just knew that I needed to be around it. You're not going to get a ride sitting on your couch. So I used to go to the races, and I think that's when he saw that, you know, he had seen something on the track, but now he was seeing off the track that I really did want it. Mike had offered me to drive a second car for him, but, you know, he didn't really have the money to run a full budget for another team. So he said, if you can come up with some money, we'll do a full season. So there I was on a mission.
Erin remained determined to follow her dream of being a racer. As a sophomore in college, Erin spent many nights writing up proposals for potential sponsorships. Eventually, a tip led her to the admissions office of her own prestigious engineering college, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
I went to check my email, and there was an email like, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute will sponsor you for the following dollar amount. And I was like, it was a huge moment. Like, I'll never forget it. I was so excited. So I remember, I think Mike was on vacation with his wife somewhere, and I called him like, sorry to interrupt your vacation, but you have to hear this. And I called everyone. It was really neat. And
I think the admissions people discovered that she was a race car driver. It's rather unique that you have a young woman that's a highly acclaimed race car driver. She was nationally recognized when she came here as a freshman. And I think that there was some interaction between our admissions staff and Erin, and get the message out about Rensselaer and get the message out about science and engineering and some of the exciting aspects of that.
They didn't ask much at all. It was really, and looking back and now seeing, you know, how real sponsorships work at this stage of the game, like, you know, I had a pretty sweetheart deal with them.
With money in hand, Mike and Erin molded a 3-year plan they hoped would end on the doorsteps of NASCAR.
Through the 02 season, we'd raced her in the wing 360 sprint car, and she had an incredible amount of success. A lot of crashes and stuff too, but by the end of the year we were pretty solid, and she was a contender every night she raced. We started in 03 with that same series, but we had a goal that we wanted to meet and put her in NASCAR or IRL as soon as possible. Kind of had a 3-year plan. A lot of the NASCAR owners have a lot of respect for the USAC Silver Crown Series. And kind of just jumped in there in March without having any pavement experience on my end or her end.
I remember saying, look, we shouldn't do this. We're not going to be able to do it right. It was all done with good intentions, but it probably was a bad idea.
And I wouldn't say we did terrible, but it didn't go like we wanted. We learned so much every weekend, but she was being a woman, and the only woman in that series was getting a lot of press, and we weren't performing. We decided, rather than going to IRP for the next race, to do what we knew how to do, and that was sprint car racing just at the next level, at the World Outlaw level.
The biggest race for the World of Outlaw Series is held in Knoxville, Iowa. It's called the Knoxville Nationals, a race which attracts the best sprint car drivers from around the world. Hundreds of the best racers gather in early August each year to decide the best of the best.
Mike said, well, I was thinking about it the other day, like we could maybe get a 410 and go to the Knoxville Nationals. Up until that point, I had been running 360 cubic inch motors, which obviously less power, like 200 less horsepower, and running a 410 is like what the World of Outlaws race. It was a big step. And I had been running really well in the sprint car at the time, so I was really confident about sprint car. So it's like, you know what, let's just go do it. It'll be so much bigger if I could go out there and make an impression in the Knoxville Nationals than if I go to this Silver Crown race and maybe qualify for the race.
Hence we went to the Knoxville Nationals, Daytona 500 of sprint car racing worldwide. And our first attempt there, Erin's second time ever in a 410, the bigger engine sprint car, she made the final field from, I think it was 170 entries. She made the final 24 that night, and that kind of changed her world.
And then I remember going back to the hotel that night, and I was like totally wound up. The crew guys that night, they thought I was crazy. I was jumping on the bed like I qualified for the event like a 2-year-old, but it was big.
The week she qualified for the Knoxville Nationals was the big turning point. Was the week that we set up and said, well, you know, this is amazing.
The Knoxville Nationals is the Super Bowl of sprint car racing. Finishing 22nd was not what Erin anticipated, but just making the race is a major accomplishment. However, it is just one race. Critics wondered whether Erin could stay competitive for a full season of big league sprint car racing, a challenge that could make or break Erin's racing career. She would be competing against the living legends of sprint car racing, like Steve Kinser, whose resume includes over 500 World of Outlaws victories.
The best part about it is Erin was really competitive. She got out there and raced with everybody and raced clean, and she did a very good job.
I think I surprised them all. Like, I came in with a little bit of respect because the first week I was fast, and yeah, it was only one race, Knoxville was, but it was a pretty important race. So I didn't come in like completely like, who is this random showing up at the track? I had some credibility off the bat. But running the full circuit was a whole different story. Running night in and night out with those guys, I mean, there's a reason they call Steve Kinser the king. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And I mean, to finish top 5 with those guys is like, is huge. And I think I learned a lot as a person. I think I gained a lot of confidence. I only had run 8 races in a 410 before I decided to go and run the top series in sprint car racing. Like, it was kind of a ridiculous jump. But again, my thinking and Mike's thinking at the time was, if I can win one outlaw race, it's going to be huge. Like, it's going to be big. But I mean, that was the intention. I could go run a local short track and a late model for years and no one would notice. But if I put myself against the best, and I know that Jeff Gordon and I know that Tony Stewart and Casey Kane have more respect for Steve Kinser than they have for most people. If I can beat him, well, that means that I can prove that I can do something big.
She did do something big. In 2004, Crocker became the first woman to win a race in the Rough and Tough World of Outlaw series. With the big win came earned respect from fellow drivers and newfound confidence.
And she ran really good. The first half of the year ran really good. She got out there and she hung right in there and won it. And I was one right behind her trying to chase her and pass her myself, and I've been doing it for quite some time, and she did a great job.
It was a good experience. And then to earn the respect of Steve Kinser, you know, it would prove to Tony Stewart and to Jeff Gordon that I could do something big. Well, it proved it to me. And I didn't think I realized that would happen, but it did. Like, I think I have a lot more confidence coming into this stock car world, even though I know I have a ton to learn because it's so different than sprint car racing. I still know my skill and my determination are strong enough to beat Steve Kinser. Well, then they're strong enough to beat Jeff Gordon someday.
Erin Crocker has never been short on confidence. But in the ultra-competitive field of auto racing, even the conviction of some of racing's best drivers can be put to the test. Drivers like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart have struggled and gone through slumps. Erin Crocker would discover that she is no different. Erin Crocker started racing at the age of 6. Every step of the way, she's had to overcome stereotypes. After racing and winning at every level, from quarter midgets to sprint cars, Erin Crocker was glowing in the national spotlight, and it wasn't long before NASCAR came calling.
Casey one day said, look, if you're ever going to look at a lady driver, you need to look at this girl, Erin Crocker, because she's really good. And we started to look at her, and she went out and won that World of Outlaws race. If she really is the real deal getting the job done, she's would be a tremendous spokesperson and just had a great personality.
Like, right off the bat with Ray, I felt really comfortable, and I could, like, I don't know, it was like one of those things that you just feel good about something.
The journey was long and definitely not easy. But in November of 2004, a little girl's dream had come true. Ray Evernham, the same man who made Jeff Gordon a champion, was shaking hands with Erin Crocker.
I think my mom was the first telephone call.
Mom, Ray Evernham.
She was really excited, and I think I called my brother Billy.
And I was driving home from work, and she called the cell phone, and I said, you know, I'm signing with Ray Evernham. I said, just give me a minute, I got to pull over for this one, and I don't pull over to talk on the phone as a rule. And she was just elated. It was just, you know, we've been racing long enough to know what Ray Evernham was and know what that meant.
Bring it straight to us, Erin.
It turns, but it's like real slow.
Better get some laps, but let's just check the toe and stuff, make sure nothing else is going to break.
In 2005, in order to gain as much experience as possible, Evernham put Crocker in a variety of racing machines. She raced part-time in ARCA, the USAC Silver Crown Series, and the NASCAR Busch and Truck Series, one step below the coveted NASCAR Nextel Cup Series.
Hard crash. Okay. Erin Crocker in the 6. I think Erin's going to be okay until that.
Trouble for Erin Crocker.
Crocker struggled in 2005, and some say she was pushed too hard and too fast. The question remains, can a woman race in the big leagues and be a serious contender?
You know, last year we had a rough few starts in the Busch Series, and that's, you know, actually the media has been very easy on me, and they've actually been very positive, which is great, because I obviously still think I every bit can do it, and I still have all the confidence in myself. But it would have been easy for people to jump on that and be like, oh, just another girl, she's done. And you know, I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there saying that, but oh well to them, they'll see.
She's got to perform better than other rookies I think in the fans' eyes. Oh, crash! What do you expect? She's a woman.
A lot of that stuff I can laugh off. Like, you know, if I have Steve Kinzer thinks that I can drive a race car, and if Tony Stewart's pulling me aside to talk to me, and Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham believes in me, and General Mills, like, what does it matter if this guy over here says something? I can brush that off.
The one thing being a female does, it helps you open the door. Once the door's open, you have to perform or you're not going to stay, but it does help you open the door that a male driver wouldn't get the same op. So she's gotten breaks because she's been a female, but she's produced at each level. And if she continues to produce, we think it'll be, you know, the sky's the limit.
This year, Crocker will compete full-time in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and vie for the Rookie of the Year award, while also competing part-time in the ARCA Series and the NASCAR Busch Series.
I think that you're only on this earth for a short amount of time. Why not make something of it? Like, anyone can be ordinary. Why not be something more than ordinary?
Erin Crocker is more than ordinary. Erin Crocker is determined to be a racer. Erin Crocker, driven to win.